10 things you didn't know about Stan Musial. When you think of baseball legends, names like Babe Ruth and Mickey Mantle often come to mind first. But there's one player who quietly dominated the game for over 2 decades while maintaining a reputation as one of the classiest athletes who ever lived.
Here's the pitch. Line drive, there it is! Into left field! Hit number 3,000! A run is scored!
Stan the Man Musial spent his entire 22-year career with the St. Louis Cardinals, retiring with statistics that put him among the greatest hitters in baseball history.
The Yanks runs into Stan the Man and trouble in the fourth.
Even though Musial is already celebrated as one of the all-time greats, here are 10 lesser-known facts about the 3-time MVP who embodied everything good about America's pastime. Musial started as a pitcher and nearly lost baseball forever. Most fans know Stan Musial as one of the greatest hitters who ever lived, but his professional career actually began on the mound as a left-handed pitcher. When the Cardinals signed 17-year-old Stanley Frank Musial in 1938, they saw him as a promising young pitcher with a decent fastball and good control. Everything changed in 1940 when Musial was playing outfield due to a shortage of players. While diving for a fly ball, he landed hard on his left shoulder and permanently damaged it, essentially ending any hopes of continuing as a pitcher. The injury was so severe that Musial couldn't lift his arm above his shoulder for weeks, and team doctors weren't sure if he'd ever play baseball again. Fortunately for baseball history, Musial's bat was already showing promise even as a pitcher. The Cardinals decided to convert him to a full-time outfielder, a decision that would prove to be one of the best moves in franchise history. Without that shoulder injury, we might never have witnessed one of the most consistent hitting performances in baseball history. Sometimes the worst moments in life lead to the greatest opportunities. Brooklyn fans actually gave him his famous nickname. The story behind how Stan Musial became Stan the Man is one of the most endearing nickname origins in sports history, and it came from the fans of an opposing team who both feared and respected his incredible ability. In June 1946, during a 3-game series at Ebbets Field in Brooklyn, Musial absolutely torched the Dodgers with an 8-for-12 performance that left fans stunned.
The pitch to Musial. A hot shot on the ground into right field, a base hit. There's third around third. Here's a no throw. The Cardinals lead 1-0.
St. Louis sports writer Bob Brogue noticed that every time Musial stepped to the plate, the Brooklyn fans would chant something, but he couldn't quite make out what they were saying over the crowd noise. Later that evening over dinner, Brogue asked Cardinals traveling secretary Leo Ward if he understood what the Dodger fans were chanting. Ward replied every time Stan came up, they chanted, "Here comes the man." Brogue assumed Ward meant that man, but Ward corrected him. No, the man. The nickname stuck, and Brogue mentioned it in his newspaper column the next day. Even opposing fans recognized that Musial was simply on another level, earning his nickname through the grudging respect of rivals who knew they were witnessing greatness every time he stepped into the batter's box. Musial's batting statistics are perfectly symmetrical. One of the most remarkable and statistically impossible coincidences in baseball history involves Stan Musial's career hit totals. When Musial retired in 1963, he had accumulated exactly 3,630 hits over his 22-year career. What makes this number absolutely mind-blowing is that exactly half of those hits, 1,815, came at home, and exactly 1,815 came on the road. This perfect symmetry wasn't planned or manufactured in any way. Musial didn't know this incredible coincidence until after he retired, and statisticians began analyzing his career numbers. The odds of a player accumulating thousands of hits and having them split exactly evenly between home and road games are astronomical, especially considering all the variables that affect hitting performance. The symmetry becomes even more incredible when you consider that Musial played in an era when travel was much more difficult and playing conditions varied dramatically between ballparks. Road games meant long train rides, unfamiliar hotels, different lighting, and hostile crowds, yet Musial performed identically at home and away. This statistical anomaly perfectly captures Musial's remarkable consistency and ability to perform at the highest level regardless of circumstances. It's the kind of coincidence that makes you believe baseball really is a magical game. Musial served his country and missed a prime season. In 1945, at the height of World War II, Stan Musial made a decision that cost him what could have been the greatest season of his career. At age 24 and coming off 3 consecutive All-Star seasons, Musial enlisted in the U.S. Navy and spent the entire 1945 season serving his country instead of playing baseball. Musial was assigned to the Navy Special Services Division and spent most of his service time at the Bainbridge Naval Training Station in Maryland, where he occasionally played baseball for the base team. While some professional athletes received cushy assignments that allowed them to continue playing, Musial took his military service seriously and focused on his duties rather than trying to maintain his baseball career. The sacrifice was enormous from a statistical standpoint. Musial was entering his prime years and had just finished a 1944 season where he hit .347 with 197 hits. Missing an entire season at that age likely cost him hundreds of hits and could have potentially pushed him over 4,000 career hits, a milestone reached by only 2 players in baseball history. When Musial returned in 1946, he picked right up where he left off, leading the Cardinals to a World Series championship while hitting .365. His seamless transition back to baseball after a year away showed not only his incredible talent, but also his mental toughness and character. Musial never complained about the time he lost or dwelled on what might have been, viewing his military service as simply doing what was expected of every American during wartime. Musial never struck out more than 46 times in a season. In today's game, where 200-plus strikeouts are common for power hitters, Stan Musial's plate discipline seemed almost impossible to believe.
In Musial's career, and by far the most important, the National League.
Over his 22-year career, Musial never struck out more than 46 times in a single season, and his career high came in his final season when he was 42 years old and playing part-time. For context, Musial's career high strikeout total of 46 would be considered an excellent month for many modern sluggers. His career total of 696 strikeouts over 22 seasons averages out to just 32 strikeouts per year. Some current players strike out more in their first month of the season than Stan did in entire years. What made Musial's plate discipline even more remarkable was that he wasn't just making contact for the sake of avoiding strikeouts. He maintained his power throughout his career, hitting 475 home runs while rarely whiffing. Musial's approach was based on patience, pitch recognition, and an almost supernatural ability to make solid contact with any pitch in the strike zone. His strikeout rate was so low that pitchers knew they couldn't fool him with trick pitches or hope he'd chase bad balls. This forced them to challenge him with strikes, which played right into Musial's strengths. His combination of power and contact ability made him one of the most feared hitters of his generation and helped establish a standard for hitting excellence that seems almost impossible by today's standards. Musial played harmonica. Before Stan Musial became one of baseball's greatest hitters, he was seriously considering a completely different kind of performance career. He became so good at harmonica that teammates joked he could have been a musician if baseball hadn't worked out. Growing up in Donora, Pennsylvania, Musial taught himself to play harmonica and became quite skilled at it. He would often entertain teammates on long train rides between cities, playing popular songs and even some classical pieces. His musical ability was well known throughout baseball, and he would occasionally perform at team functions and charity events. Musial was so talented on the harmonica that local music teachers encouraged him to pursue formal training and consider a career in music. In the 1930s, harmonica players could make a living performing on radio shows, in clubs, and with traveling musical acts. The instrument was much more popular then, and skilled players were in demand. Even after becoming a baseball star, Musial continued playing harmonica throughout his career. He would often pull out his harmonica in the clubhouse after games, and teammates said his music helped keep the team loose and relaxed during tense situations. Musial's musical ability showed another dimension to his personality and helped establish his reputation as one of the most well-rounded and talented individuals to ever play professional sports. Musial was the first player to hit 400 home runs and 3,000 hits. Stan Musial achieved a milestone that no player in baseball history had ever reached before him, becoming the first player to accumulate 400 home runs and 3,000 hits in a career. This achievement perfectly captured what made Musial special, the rare combination of power and consistency that defined his entire career. When Musial reached 3,000 hits on May 13, 1958, with a pinch hit double against the Chicago Cubs, he'd already had 431 home runs to his credit. At that time, only 8 players in baseball history had reached 3,000 hits, and none of them had combined that level of hitting consistency with significant power numbers. The achievement was particularly impressive because it required 2 different skill sets that don't always go together. Reaching 400 home runs requires raw power and the ability to drive the ball out of the park consistently. Getting 3,000 hits requires incredible longevity, consistency, and the ability to make contact year after year. Most players excel at one or the other, but but rarely both. Musial's dual milestone established him as baseball's most complete hitter up to that point. He wasn't just a singles hitter who accumulated hits over time, nor was he a one-dimensional slugger who relied only on home runs. He was the perfect blend of power and average, capable of beating you with a line drive single or a towering home run. This achievement opened the door for future legends like Willie Mays and Hank Aaron, but Musial was the first to prove it could be done. Musial's unique batting stance was accidentally discovered. Stan Musial's distinctive batting stance, with his feet close together, knees slightly bent, and hands held high, became one of the most recognizable silhouettes in baseball history. But this iconic stance wasn't developed through careful coaching or mechanical analysis. It happened completely by accident. As a young player in the minor leagues, Musial was struggling at the plate and trying different approaches to find something that worked. During one particularly frustrating batting practice session, he was fooling around between swings and adopted what he thought was an awkward, uncomfortable position as a joke to make his teammates laugh. When the next pitch came, Musial forgot to step out and instead swung from this strange position, making perfect contact and driving the ball hard. His teammates told him to try it again, and when he did, the results were the same. What started as a joke became his permanent stance. The stance worked because it allowed Musial to see the ball well and generated tremendous bat speed despite looking awkward. His hands were positioned perfectly to turn on inside pitches while still being able to drive outside pitches to the opposite field. Hitting coaches often tried to fix his stance early in his career, but Musial stuck with what worked. The accidentally discovered stance became so associated with Musial that a statue outside Busch Stadium captures him in that exact position, frozen forever, in the pose that helped make him one of the greatest hitters who ever lived. Musial once hit 5 home runs in a doubleheader. On May 2, 1954, Stan Musial accomplished one of the rarest feats in baseball history by hitting 5 home runs in a single day during a doubleheader against the New York Giants at Busch Stadium. This achievement has been matched only by a handful of players in the modern era and showcases Musial's incredible power and consistency. In the first game, Musial hit 3 home runs, which was already a remarkable performance. But what made the day truly special was that he wasn't finished. In the second game, Musial added 2 more home runs, giving him 5 for the day and setting a record that still stands as one of baseball's most impressive single-day performances. The home runs came off different pitchers and at different points in both games, showing that this wasn't just a case of one pitcher who couldn't figure out how to get Musial out. He was simply locked in that day and seeing the ball better than humanly possible. Teammates said afterwards that Musial looked like he knew what pitch was coming on every at-bat. What made the performance even more impressive was that Musial wasn't typically considered a pure home run hitter compared to sluggers like Willie Mays or Mickey Mantle. He was more known for his consistent line drives and high batting average. The 5 home run day showed that when Musial was locked in, he could match anyone's power output while maintaining his incredible plate discipline and contact ability. Musial's Presidential Medal of Freedom almost didn't happen. In 2011, at age 90, Stan Musial received the Presidential Medal of Freedom from President Barack Obama, the highest civilian honor in the United States. But the ceremony almost didn't happen due to Musial's deteriorating health and his family's concern about the travel and stress involved. By 2011, Musial was showing signs of dementia and rarely made public appearances. His family was protective of his privacy and worried that the ceremony might be too overwhelming for someone in his condition. They initially declined the invitation, thinking it would be better for Musial to remember him as he was during his playing days. However, Cardinals officials and longtime friends convinced the family that this was an honor Musial would have wanted to receive, and that it was important for the country to recognize his contributions both on and off the field. The ceremony was modified to accommodate Musial's needs with a shorter format and family members providing additional support. When Obama presented Musial with the medal, the president noted that Musial didn't just excel on the field, he was also a good man. The ceremony was one of Musial's final public appearances before his death in 2013, making it a fitting capstone to a life spent representing the best values of both baseball and America. The medal recognized not just his athletic achievements, but his character, military service, and decades of community involvement in St. Louis. Thanks for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and comment to let us know which fact about Stan the Man surprised you the most. Subscribe for more legendary baseball stories every week. This is Inside Baseball, where we bring you the best of the game.